Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now Chris Eubank Jr. has said that he wants these big names fast. The likes of Charlo, Triple G, Canelo and Murata because he has the regular WBA world title, and Chris Eubank Jr. is interim WBA world champion in the middleweight division. So he wants these big names and it's apparent that he wants a world title fight. Now Chris Eubank Jr. at the moment is in a situation where he is a big name, he's a big draw, so ultimately he can bring a big purse to the table. But obviously with the situation it's not going to be easy, but still, Chris Eubank Jr. is 30 years old and probably peaking around now. He's probably going to get no better than he is currently, so the important thing for Chris Eubank Jr. is to be active, to have these fights now, because if he waits, I mean, he's not going to have the chance. If he waits, then ultimately these fights could elude him. So he does need to chase these fights. Now, the Murata fight, I'm not interested in because I just don't think it's a good fight. But I think that Chris Eubank Jr. Canelo is an entertaining fight. Chris Eubank Jr. versus Triple G is an entertaining fight. Now, whether Chris Eubank deserves that or not is another thing entirely. But ultimately, given the current climate and where we are at with boxing, we do need entertaining fights. And fights like this that would bring a huge draw of fans to that fight. So yes, Chris Eubank Jr. does warrant a fight with Triple G and Canelo. Now, a fight I would like to see Chris Eubank Jr. have is against David Lemieux. That would be a brilliant fight, especially if he fought David Lemieux, and I believe he does win that fight. But if he does have that fight, wins that one, then maybe sets up a fight with Gennady Golovkin or even Canelo, maybe even Charlo. But I believe that Chris Eubank Jr. does need to get back into the ring and shake off some of that ring rust, get back in there, get a fight, get it won. But we don't want to see a gimme fight. We want to see him fight someone of note. David Lemieux would be a good statement for Chris Eubank Jr. So maybe that fight, but ultimately he has explained that he is trying to move fast. He wants these big names fast, and that is encouraging. I'm glad to hear someone say it, that they want these big fights now. None of the smaller fights, none of the keep busy fights. He wants to go straight to the champions. Again, does he deserve it? Well, he is WBA interim champion, and he's willing to go and fight them in the current climate. So yes, let him fight Triple G, let him fight Charlo, let him fight Canelo, because he's the one who wants it. He's the one there waiting, saying, given the current climate, I don't care. I still want to fight anyway. Now, naturally, amongst the fights that he has laid out, the easiest one would be Murata, because ultimately he's nowhere near the level of Charlo, Triple G or Canelo, but it's still a fight that Chris Eubank Jr. is chasing because he is interim WBA world champion. Murata is regular champion. But ultimately, that's not a big fight. It's not something that's interesting. The interesting fights are with the top three. The big names that Chris Eubank Jr. has mentioned, and he does warrant a fight with them because he has the name, he can bring the purse, he can bring it all to the table. And he's durable, likes to fight. Against Triple G, neither fighter taking a step back for potentially 12 rounds, or as long as it lasts. I mean, sign us up. We all want to see that. Same with Canelo. Neither fighter would want to take a step back. So it is going to be an entertaining fight, and that is what boxing needs right now. I mean, above all else, I'm just curious. I just want to see how Chris Eubank Jr. would fare in the middleweight division against Golovkin, against Canelo, because I was curious the first time when they were potentially making that fight between Chris Eubank Jr. and Triple G. I don't believe Triple G is the same fighter he was then, now. So maybe this time around Chris Eubank Jr. would have a better chance against him. Who knows? But guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Do you believe that Chris Eubank Jr. should get a shot at one of those fighters? It is positive that he's willing to jump straight in with one of them. Maybe even take less money just to make these big fights happen. The fights that would be extremely entertaining. Guys, anyway, drop your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.